My name is Austin, and today I'd like to show you my lightly modified 1979 Mazda RX7. Under this hood is a GSL SE 13B out of an FB RX7. That means it's got big, heavy rotors and 3mm apex seals. This particular 13B has a pretty substantial street port. Now, this is also a turbo car, and the turbo setup on this car is a Borg-Warner S362 with a .91 hot side and an external 44mm tail wastegate. This turbo is really suited for something like a Cummins or a big diesel truck, so it's happy to pump 35 psi all day. I am only running 15 to 20 so that I don't twist this motor or blow up this transmission. Now, the exhaust setup on this car is totally custom. We start with a tubular manifold coming off the engine, holding the turbo up, and coming off of the hot side of the turbo, we have a 4-inch downpipe. Off of the downpipe, there's a 3.5-inch mid-pipe that bounces into a silencer, and from the silencer, we have a muffler hanging off the back. The exhaust isn't uncomfortably loud most of the time. It is a little bit drony at highway speeds, which I'll make sure to demonstrate here. However, once the external wastegate is opened, it is a different story. The screamer pipe on that thing is maybe a foot long, and it dumps under the passenger footwell. So when it opens up, you'll hear it. I'll make sure to insert a clip of that here. Now, the intake system on this car is very interesting to me. We have a carburetor-style intake manifold with individual throttle bodies capped off by this funky sort of oil tanker plenum that sits TIG-welded atop the whole setup that runs out to custom intercooler piping. All the intake on this thing has been totally custom fit for the purpose. This does not have a V-mount like a lot of turbo RX-7s, and in fact has sort of a sandwich, which I'll be sure to demonstrate for you. Now, in that carburetor-style manifold are 4 fuel injectors, 750cc primaries and 1600cc secondaries. There is an external fuel pump and a surge tank just to prevent any sloshing shenanigans that you may get up to on track. There is a large front mount intercooler on this car with an oil cooler beneath it and a Champion radiator behind that. So there really is a big cooling sandwich up here that is getting lots and lots of airflow. My temperatures are fantastic. Even on track, I don't get over 200 coolant temp with this beauty. The ECU that runs this whole contraption is an old Mega Squirt 2 hand-built by the gentleman who built this car and this motor. He did a good job, and I did a good job tuning it, but it's an old ECU, and a Haltech would do this thing a whole lot of good. I'm talking about engine protection, throttle response, all kinds of little nuanced things that we can improve with a Haltech in this thing. It's on the list. This is a GTU-style wide-body kit that is era-appropriate to a late 70s Mazda, and it does need a little bit of love. It has seen a lot. I plan to take this kit completely apart, rebuild it, repaint it, and put all of this back together one day. In the meantime, though, we can take a look at these wheels. These are vintage SSR Formula meshes. They are 15 by 9 here in the front and 15 by 11 in the rear. The tire package I'm running is a Hankook Ventus RS4. I've got two 25, 45, 15 here in the front and two 45, 40, 15 in the rear. I daily drive this car here in Colorado, and even in our monsoon season, these tires held up remarkably well. They do fabulous on track, and they do fabulous on the street. Big fan, can recommend. Now, that said, I could use a taller tire here in the front, and I could run even a 265 in the rear with more sidewall than that. I've got lots of room under this body kit. Unfortunately, when I bought this car, it was being prepared for paint, so for now, here it sits in this dilapidated condition. But worry not. As soon as I have a space to work, I'll be taking this thing apart and doing more than a little work to it. The suspension package on this car consists of KYB dampers and the Racing Beat spring package, which I find completely livable and completely trackable. This is a very, very flexible package given the fact that there's no adjustability. Now, unfortunately, this being a Series 1 American RX-7, it does have a manual steering box under the hood. There are perks and drawbacks to that. It's an incredibly communicative car. I know exactly what these front wheels are doing on the road or on track. Drawback of that is that I know exactly what these wheels are doing on the road or on track. If there's a bump, a rock, anything, you feel it. This thing will try to rip the wheel out of your hands 3 times a drive, and that's just part of the experience. Of course, that also means it tram lines like crazy, and that's no fun at all. But at the end of the day, it's a very livable setup for such a light car. The only time it really makes me sweat is when I have to parallel park, which luckily isn't terribly often these days. Now, one day I do intend to rip the guts out of an old crashed FC that I have, thanks Andy, and put the front subframe, rack and pinion steering, and front hubs into this car. That'll give me bigger brakes, power steering, and a little bit more flexibility as far as suspension goes. I'll be able to put some coilovers on this little guy.